The first flashes come like lightning, too bright to look at, too charged to ignore. Fear, excitement, shame, thrill, they all blur together in the reel of memory that never stops playing behind my eyes. Back then, I lived two lives, one in daylight, ordinary and careful, the other in the half-light of my imagination, where I could finally breathe. Even now, I can feel it, the tremor of being discovered, the pulse of breaking a rule no one dared name. I edited my own memories, the way a director cuts a forbidden scene, keeping only what I could stand to remember. But the truth always slipped through the cracks. The secret rush, the fragile beauty of stepping into that hidden self. We all have a place like that, a private wonderland where fantasy blurs into reality, where we build lives from what-ifs and dress our hopes in silk and light. I lived there for years, chasing the version of me that only existed in dreams, and each morning I woke tangled in the proof that the dream had almost been real. When I finally stepped outside dressed as her, my whole body trembled. The night air kissed my nylon-clad legs, each click of my heels echoing like a heartbeat against the concrete, a faint trail of perfume marking my path. I didn't dare stop anywhere, I just drove, circling the quiet streets, praying the car wouldn't break down. If my friends ever found out, it'd be chaos. But I made it home safely, peeled everything off in a blur, scrubbed away the perfume and makeup, and stared at my reflection, half exhilarated, half terrified. That feeling still lives in me, a strange harmony of thrill and dread. When I was younger, I dreamed of being rich, handsome, clever, and somehow a woman. That last wish was a secret I guarded fiercely. Something inside me was drawn to the softness, the elegance, the rhythm of femininity. I tried everything. The old rubber girdles that clung to me like punishment, the stubborn makeup that refused to wash off, the long skirts brushing my ankles. Each experiment left me flushed with shame, yet hungry for more. By the time I had my own apartment, I'd become skilled, or so I thought, at presenting myself as a young woman. I owned a few outfits, small tokens of my secret life. That first night alone in my own place, I lay awake imagining a world where I was beautiful, where men turned their heads, eager to take me out. I could almost smell the perfume, feel the whisper of fabric against my skin, the soft squeeze of nylons around my legs, the gentle weight of long hair grazing my back. Those dreams were intoxicating. They pulled me forward, made me believe I could reach them. Reality, of course, was less kind. I'm short, stocky, brown-haired, brown-eyed. No tall, graceful blonde stared back from the mirror, just me. I didn't look like a man in a dress, but I didn't look like the woman I wanted to be either. Just plain. And I didn't want to be plain. I wanted the kind of beauty that makes people pause, soft skin, full lips, a smile that lights a room. I wanted the clothes, the hair, the charm, the girl next door sweetness with a hint of playful confidence. That's who I wanted to become. Unrealistic, maybe, but dreams aren't meant to be practical, are they? My job gave me the freedom to be myself, at least a little. I started growing my hair out, and with each passing month, my hunger grew. I'd stare at my meager wardrobe and feel that ache, the need to see myself as I truly imagined. Finally, I took out a mail-order catalog and measured myself, numbers that somehow felt both empowering and humiliating. Then came the hardest part, finding the courage to buy proper breast forms. I called store after store, only to be met with awkward silence or irritation from the women on the other end of the line. The shame stung. Then came Mary. Her voice was calm, warm. She didn't hesitate when I explained. She simply said, "Come in dressed, so I can see what'll suit you." On the day of the appointment, I spent hours preparing blue skirt, white blouse, trembling hands. Fear clung to me like static as I drove, imagining every possible disaster. But Mary, when I met her, wasn't what I expected. She was around my mother's age, with kind blue eyes and hair as white as snow. After a few tries, she found the right size, a B cup, close enough to my skin tone, held on with double-sided tape. When she handed them to me, I felt my breath hitch. They were soft, pliable, warm against my chest, almost real. The mirror showed a version of me that was closer to who I dreamed of being. Not perfect, but enough. The disappointment faded beneath a rush of quiet joy. I drove home still wearing them, heart pounding, knowing that for the first time, I wasn't just pretending. I was becoming. The weight of them tugged at my chest, filling the bra and completing the illusion I'd built piece by piece, a vision of the woman I carried inside. Every glance in the mirror drew me a little closer to her. From that day on, whenever I had a day off, I wore them. They became part of me, a quiet, private affirmation. Next came my hair. It had always been cut by Linda, she'd known me for years, so if anyone could handle the truth, it was her. Still, the thought of telling her made my stomach twist. I rehearsed what I'd say, how I'd sound casual, unashamed. When I finally told her, she didn't even blink, just smiled, pulled out her appointment book, and said, "Let's make it official." Not a question, not a raised brow. Like Mary before her, she simply told me to come dressed as I wanted to be seen. It took everything in me to do it. I sat in the car outside the salon, hands gripping the steering wheel, watching women come and go, laughing, talking, living their ordinary lives. And there, I was terrified to take a single step. But I did. My heels clicked softly against the tile floor, every sound magnified in my mind. I kept my head high, walked straight to Linda's chair, and sank into it like I'd just crossed a finish line. We flipped through her style books together, glossy pages of models with perfect hair and bright smiles. I pointed to a few, but in the end, I told her to do what she thought was best. She smiled knowingly and went to work. The scent of shampoos, dyes, and hairsprays filled the air, sharp, chemical, intoxicating. It was the smell of transformation. When she was done, I barely recognized myself. My hair was shaped into a neat page boy, rolled under and sprayed into submission with what she cheerfully called her liquid concrete. Stepping out into the cool fall air felt like stepping into sunlight for the first time. My chest full, my new hairstyle framing my face plain, yes, but somehow radiant with confidence, I felt unstoppable. For once I wasn't hiding. And then came the test them all, the great arena of judgment. I'd never dared go near it dressed like this, but something inside me whispered, "You can." So I parked at the farthest corner of the lot, giving myself an escape route if my courage failed. My heart hammered as I reached for the door handle. But when I stepped inside, something unexpected happened. Calm. Not the nervous, trembling kind of calm, but a stillness, like I belonged there. I walked straight to the lingerie section, chin up, smile steady. I picked out 3 bras, a few slips, a nightgown, and some panties, everyday things. Simple, beautiful. The saleswoman rang me up without a flicker of surprise, her voice polite, neutral. Emboldened, I moved on to the clothing department: dresses, skirts, slacks, even a pair of shorts. Each choice felt like a victory. Each step toward the register, a quiet declaration. I am her. When I left the store, bags in hand, no one had stared, no one had whispered. In the car, I laughed soft at first, then freer. I'd walked through the world as myself, and no one had tried to stop me. For the first time, I didn't just look the part. I felt it. I'd pulled off my own small miracle, and the glow of it carried me all the way home. I couldn't stop replaying the scene in my mind, the click of my heels echoing through the mall, the rhythm of my skirt brushing against my legs, the steady grip of my purse tucked under my arm like something precious. I'd walked openly, head high, and the world hadn't crumbled. That tiny victory filled me with a heady confidence I'd never felt before. Once home, I dropped the shopping bags onto the bed, made a quick lunch I barely tasted, and returned to my new wardrobe like a child on Christmas morning. One by one, I tried everything on. The dress was fine, simple, flattering enough, but the suit stopped me in my tracks. A red jacket paired with a pleated black skirt, a crisp white blouse, and sleek black heels. The jacket cinched just enough to suggest curves I didn't quite have. The skirt, cut above the knee, gave my legs a shapely grace they'd never shown before. I leaned closer to the mirror and reached for a deeper shade of lipstick. The color bloomed across my lips, bold and unapologetic. For a moment, I saw not the dream, but the possibility, something real, standing right there in front of me. And then, as if my reflection itself had stirred the memory, my thoughts drifted back to a hospital room long ago. My grandfather lay there, frail but fierce in spirit, his breath shallow yet steady. "I'm not leaving here alive," he'd said softly, his voice roughened by age and truth. "We both know it, son." I was just a boy then, but I remember the weight of his hand in mine, the same hand that had once taught me how to tie a tie, fix a fence, throw a ball. He looked at me with those cloudy blue eyes that still burned with clarity. "Listen to me," he said. "You live your life your way. Not mine. Not anyone else's. Yours. When I was your age, I didn't have that choice, but you do." His grip tightened, surprisingly strong for a dying man. "Your soul is soft like your grandmother's. Be yourself. Explore who you are, then do what's right." Moments later, his eyes closed, and he was gone. Just like that. I'd like to think he found Grandma waiting for him, probably fussing that he'd taken too long. I was too young to remember much of her, but the love they'd shown me never faded. They'd taken in my brother and me after our parents were sent away, gave us a home, stability, and a sense of belonging when everything else had collapsed. Now both of them were gone. It was just my brother and me, and that fragile, complicated bond we shared. I felt a tear slide down my cheek as I stood there in the mirror, caught between the past and the fragile courage of the present. Then came the doorbell, a sound that once would have sent me scrambling to hide, heart pounding, desperate to cover up every trace of who I was. But not this time. I was still wearing the suit, the red jacket, the black skirt, the heels that gave me an inch of borrowed confidence. I hesitated only a second before walking to the door and opening it. And there he was, my brother. For a heartbeat, neither of us spoke. His eyes widened just slightly, and every muscle in my body went taut, the air thick between us. I could actually feel the tension crawl up my spine, settling low, like a knot of fear and defiance. I managed a shaky smile and gestured for him to come in. He didn't hesitate, just stepped inside like nothing in the world was strange about this. Then he turned toward me, and for a split second I braced for ridicule. Instead, he grinned. "So," he said lightly, "you finally managed to make yourself presentable." I stared, speechless. He dropped down on my couch, casual as ever, while I perched across from him, trying to sit like a proper lady, knees pressed together, hands neatly folded, heart pounding against my ribs. Sweat trickled down my back, while I waited for whatever bombshell he was about to drop. "I stopped by to see if you wanted to hit that new club downtown," he said. I can't. I'd have to change. Not today," I stammered, feeling the heat crawl up my neck. "Yes, you can," he shot back with a grin. "It's obvious someone did your hair professionally, and I've got to admit, you look really good. Go change into something for the evening. I'll be back in 4 hours. We'll grab dinner, then head to the club." And just like that, he was on his feet again, heading for the door, leaving me gaping after him. He tossed a smile over his shoulder before closing it behind him, as if this were the most natural conversation in the world. I sat there stunned, replaying every word. He knew about my cross-dressing before, sure, but he'd never said anything like that. Never complimented me, never invited me out. And to a nightclub of all places. My thoughts tangled between excitement, fear, and disbelief. I was still blotting my eyes with a tissue when the doorbell rang again. My heart leapt. I half expected my brother back, maybe laughing, ready to tell me it was all a joke. But when I opened the door, it wasn't him. Sarah stood there, my neighbor. She had that pixie haircut that made her look perpetually mischievous, Green eyes that sparkled even when she wasn't smiling, though. Right now, she was. I saw you come in earlier, she said, slipping past me before I could even invite her. Then that guy came over. Now spill what's going on? Sarah knew, of course. She'd seen enough to figure out what I was. But instead of pointing, whispering, or asking awkward questions, she just looked me up and down with frank curiosity. Her smile didn't waver. That was my brother, I said, gesturing vaguely. He's cute, she teased. He thinks so too. What do I call you? She asked suddenly. I don't even know your name. Emily, I said after a beat. Her grin widened. Pretty name. New clothes? I got tired of, I began, but she interrupted, glancing at the small pile on my chair. You don't have many, do you? Not until today, I admitted. I bought this suit, a dress, 2 skirts, some slacks, and shorts. Mark, my brother, wants me to go with him to that new club downtown tonight. The words spilled out before I could stop them. My voice betrayed me, trembling at the edges. Sarah's eyebrows shot up, her eyes dancing. Can I see the new dress? I hurried to fetch it, holding it up like a prize. She nodded approvingly, but shook her head. Nice, she said, but not exactly nightclub material. Then, with a conspiratorial glint, she added, Come with me. I followed her next door. Her apartment mirrored mine, but felt warmer, filled with little bursts of color scarves, candles, a faint vanilla scent in the air. She disappeared down the hallway and returned holding up a shimmering dress that caught the light. Her grin turned playful. Try this instead. The dress Sarah held up shimmered like midnight black, sleeveless, with a square neckline that managed to be modest and daring at once. Wear these with it, Emily, she said, eyes sparkling, and you'll knock 'em dead. I took the dress, my hands trembling slightly, feeling the weight of both fabric and expectation. As I was heading for the door, Sarah tilted her head and asked casually, What do you use for your waist? I don't use anything, I admitted. Why? Wait a minute. She disappeared into her bedroom and came back holding a black corselet, smooth and intimidating. Try this. I wear it for special occasions. You can get your own later. Once it's on, call me and I'll tighten it for you. I thanked her, clutching the dress and corselet to my chest as I made my way home, my mind flashing with an image I tried to push aside Sarah, in that same corselet, the fabric hugging every curve. We were about the same size. If she could look that good, maybe I could too. Inside my apartment, I locked the door and stripped quickly, heading for the bath. I filled the tub with steaming water and poured in a generous swirl of bubble bath, the air sweet and thick with the scent. I sank into it, letting the warmth loosen me. Then, slowly, methodically, I shaved arms, legs, chest, every bit of skin I could reach until it was smooth. I scrubbed away the old makeup, reapplying the razor to my face until it was as clean as glass. When I finally stepped out, the air bit at my bare skin. I dried off, slipped into my only pair of black panties, and sat at my makeshift vanity. The reflection that stared back at me looked both vulnerable and determined. I began to paint her back into being. Foundation, eyeliner, blush, lipstick. Then I fixed the breast forms in place and wrapped the corselet around my torso, fastening the hooks with trembling fingers. Sarah, I said into the phone a few minutes later, I think I need your help. She appeared almost instantly, tugging the laces with cheerful efficiency. I grunted as the fabric drew tighter, squeezing the air from my lungs. She pulled one last time, tied the knot, and stepped back to admire her work. That gives you a beautiful shape, Emily, she said approvingly. That dress is going to look stunning on you. Thanks, I managed, catching my breath. Then, on impulse, I added, Why don't you come with us? You think Mark's cute, and I'm his sister, I guess. He won't mind. Sarah raised an eyebrow. Well, all right, but you'll have to return the favor and lace me into mine. Give me half an hour. When she left, I finished getting ready. Pantyhose, padded brief, heels. Then the dress itself, a sleek black slide of confidence. The zipper whispered up my back, and I added earrings and a fresh coat of lipstick. Then I went next door to Sarah's apartment. She greeted me with a teasing grin, corselet already around her waist. "Your turn," she said, and I tugged the laces. As her waist drew in, her chest lifted, filling the bra cups perfectly. She looked radiant, and I felt a pang of something I couldn't quite name, half admiration, half envy. She caught my reflection in her mirror and must have read my face, because she wrapped her arms around me. "Don't you dare cry now," she whispered. "I bet some guy's going to hit on you tonight, Emily. And if that happens, I'll be right there. You don't have to do anything you don't want to. Your brother's not going to let anything happen to you anyway. So breathe, okay?" We went back to my place, waiting for Mark. In the lull, Sarah asked me questions, gentle ones, about myself as Emily. I found myself talking more openly than I ever had, about my fears, about how I saw myself. When I admitted that I thought I was plain, she laughed. "Emily," she said, "do you know how many women look like you do? Most of us. Not every girl's a model. The prettiest ones are often the hardest to be around anyway, too full of themselves. The rest of us? We're just trying to live, meet the right guy, maybe start a family. You're normal. That's what men like." Normal! Her words sank deep, softening something inside me. Then the knock came. Mark stood at the door, sharp in his jacket, looking between us with a grin. He didn't comment, didn't even blink, just waved us both toward the car. Dinner was warm and loud, full of easy conversation and the occasional burst of laughter. Mark couldn't take his eyes off Sarah. The chemistry was instant, obvious. I, meanwhile, kept expecting someone to see me, to notice what I was, but no one did. Not a glance of suspicion. My heartbeat slowed, my confidence steadying. Mark treated me like any woman pulling out my chair, asking what I'd like to drink, and it was disorienting in the best way. Once, we'd been rivals, brothers locked in endless competitions. Tonight, he acted like a protective older sibling, escorting his sister and her friend out for fun. The club throbbed with music and color, lights flickering across faces. Our table sat on the lower deck, close enough to the dance floor to feel the rhythm. Mark and Sarah were barely seated before he asked her to dance, leaving me alone. For about 2 minutes, a tall man appeared at my side. "Dance with me," he said, not as a question, but as an invitation too confident to refuse. Come on," he said with a grin. "I won't take no for an answer." So I let him lead me to the floor. His name was David. He was patient, sure-footed, and surprisingly gentle. The music wrapped around us, and to my astonishment, I found it easy to follow. For the first time, I wasn't pretending to be wanted. I was. He asked my name, then mentioned I looked a bit like Mark. When I told him Mark was my brother, his face lit up with realization, and his smile widened. His gaze lingered, and I knew exactly what it meant. He liked me, or at least the woman I appeared to be. And maybe that was enough. For now, it felt like proof that I was becoming what I'd always imagined. When the song ended, he walked me back to the table, where I introduced him to Mark and Sarah. Mark immediately waved him into the empty seat. Sarah shot me a look and winked. The night blurred into a soft rhythm of laughter, drinks, and music. Each time we danced, David's hands rested a little lower, his grip a little firmer, until they settled around my waist. I should have felt panic, but instead there was a strange warmth blooming in my chest, a dizzy curiosity. I caught my breath when he leaned close and said my name. I looked up, and that's when his lips found mine. His lips barely brushed mine, yet the touch sent a jolt through me so sharp and electric that it stole my breath. I trembled in his arms as we swayed together, the music pulsing like a heartbeat between us. He didn't push for more, just held me, his warmth surrounding me in a dizzying cocoon of sound and scent. Sarah, of course, saw everything. The moment I returned to the table, she grabbed my hand and marched me straight to the ladies' room, grinning like a cat that had caught the canary. See? She said, her voice bubbling with excitement. I told you men would find you attractive. He kissed me, I gasped. I saw that, and I'll bet you anything he asks to take you home, Emily. But I can't, I whispered, my reflection staring back at me in wide-eyed panic. What if he wants to, sweetheart? She interrupted with a knowing smile. They all want to, but that doesn't mean we have to. You just say no, kiss him goodnight, and let him go. Simple as that. But what about Mark? Sarah laughed. I don't think Mark's worried about you right now. He's trying to get into my panties, just like David's trying to get into yours. I think both of them are going home disappointed tonight, don't you? She wasn't wrong. David did ask to take me home. I hesitated, about to refuse, when I caught Sarah's subtle nod across the room, a silent go on. So I said yes. Outside, the night air was cool against my flushed skin. We walked together to his car, and during the drive, he asked for my number. I handed him one of my simple cards. Emily, followed by a phone number, and nothing more. He smiled as he pocketed it, his fingers brushing mine, longer than necessary. When we reached my apartment, he walked me to the door. Before I could say goodnight, he pulled me gently into his arms. This time, the kiss wasn't tentative. It was hungry, confident. His tongue found mine, and every nerve in my body lit up. For a moment, I let myself melt against him, feeling the thrill of being desired, wanted, seen as a woman. When I finally pulled away, my head was spinning. I managed a small smile before slipping inside, closing the door behind me as quietly as if the world might shatter from the sound. I stood there, my back against the door, trembling. My whole body was alive with the echo of his touch. I undressed slowly, the image of him lingering in my mind, blending with the one I'd always carried of myself, the woman I wanted to be. For a few fleeting minutes, the fantasy and the reality overlapped. Then the truth crept back in. I wasn't her. Not really. I removed my makeup, watching the illusion dissolve under the water, leaving behind the same familiar face I'd always known. The contrast stung more than I expected. Lying in bed afterward, I stared at the ceiling, the night replaying behind my eyes, his smile, his hands, the way he'd said my name. But underneath the glow of being wanted, another voice whispered, "It can't last." No matter how real it felt, the truth stood between us like a locked door. If I let this go further, if he found out, what would happen? Disgust? Anger? Violence? I didn't know. I only knew that pretending forever wasn't an option. Only Sarah and Mark knew who I truly was. And even they didn't know what I might do next. Would I dare see David again? Could I? I didn't have the answer. Eventually, exhaustion pulled me under. I dreamed of being held again, not as a secret, but as someone real, someone whole. When I woke, sunlight spilled across the room. It was nearly 10. My head still hummed with the night before. I brewed coffee and let soft jazz fill the silence, trying to untangle the storm inside me. As I sat there, cup in hand, I glanced down at the gentle swell of the breast forms under my shirt. My fingers brushed one absently. Warm, soft, convincing, almost real. For a moment, I let myself imagine they truly were. I dressed simply shorts, a light top, gym shoes, and brushed my hair until it looked halfway decent. No makeup. I wanted to let the beard grow a bit before shaving again. The illusion could rest for now. When Sarah knocked, I wasn't surprised. I poured her coffee, and we sat at my tiny kitchen table, the morning sunlight pooling around us. "David looked very interested in you last night," she said with a smirk. "He did," I admitted, tracing the rim of my cup. "But what of it? I can't be what he thinks I am. He believes I'm a woman, and I'm not." Sarah's tone softened. "There are plenty of ways to keep a man's interest without going that far, Emily. Just think about it." "Oh, I've thought about it," I said quietly. But sooner or later, he'll want more. And then what? She didn't answer right away. Her eyes softened with something between concern and affection. Then, she said finally, you do what feels right. You don't owe anyone anything except yourself. Her words lingered in the air long after she left, sinking deep like morning light through coffee steam. Sarah's words about Mark still echoed in my head. I hadn't been sure how he'd take seeing me like this, not as his brother, but as his sister. He was all the family I had left. Losing him wasn't an option. Listen, dummy, Sarah said, sipping her coffee with a grin. He saw you dressed, didn't he? Then asked you out to dinner? Yes. Well, figure it out. He told me last night that he's proud of you. Said you've been playing at this since you were kids, and he was ready to tell you to just go for it already. He's not mad, Emily. He's relieved. I blinked, stunned. He said that? He did. And while we were in the ladies' room, he told David that if he ever hurt you, he'd have to answer to him. Your brother was acting like a big brother because that's what he is. And you, my dear, are his little sister. I sat in silence, trying to absorb that. He never said anything. I just didn't think he'd ever accept me. And now you're telling me he's protective of me? Yup. I'll be damned, I murmured. Emily, Sarah said softly, he's your family. Why wouldn't he support you? Then, with her usual authority, she clapped her hands. Now go fix your makeup. Mark and David are coming over around 2 for a late lunch. It's casual, so what you've got on will do fine. She left, and I went to work preparing myself shower, a close shave, just enough makeup to bring life back into my face. Foundation, powder, blush, and a touch of lipstick. My hair, as always, cooperated, falling into place under Linda's perfect cut. I brushed it out, misted it lightly with hairspray, and slipped into my shorts and top again. To calm my nerves, I drove to the store, picked up a small cake and a bottle of wine, and tried to blend in among the Sunday shoppers. No one gave me a second glance, a tiny, miraculous relief. Back at Sarah's, we laid out food and drinks. I was jittery again, my stomach tight. I'm scared, I confessed. This is what I've dreamed about, people seeing me as Emily, but now that it's real, I feel like an imposter. Next to you, I'm the ugly duckling. She smiled, eyes warm. And the ugly duckling became a swan, remember? I'm not a swan, Sarah. This is as good as it gets. Oh, I don't think so, she said softly. Before I could reply, there was a knock. Mark and David entered, both smiling like they were in on some secret. Mark's attention immediately fixed on Sarah. David's on me. Mark kissed Sarah hello, and David leaned in and kissed me, too casual, confident. I could feel my pulse jump. We sat down to eat, laughter easing the edges of my nerves. Halfway through, I felt David's hand on my leg beneath the table. I froze, then let it stay. It felt nice. Comforting even. When Mark suggested watching the game, Sarah turned on the TV, and soon we divided into teams. The guys engrossed in sports, Sarah and me whispering on the couch. It wasn't long before Sarah took my arm and led me into her bedroom. Mark's not going anywhere for a while, she said with a grin. Why don't you and David finish the game at your place? He'll think that Mark's a lucky man. Just remember what I told you, set limits and hold them. Guys always want one thing, but that doesn't mean they get it. You'll be fine. I looked at her, realizing how right she was. Mark was lucky. Sarah had everything: confidence, humor, warmth. And me? I was still figuring out who I was. By the time I got home, David was already waiting at my door, that same easy smile lighting his face. I kissed Mark on the cheek for the first time as his sister before heading in. It felt right. Inside, I turned on the game, pretending calm, hoping David would focus on it. He didn't. Within moments, he pulled me into his arms again and kissed me. It was deep, insistent, full of want. His hands roamed to my back, tracing upward, and when he finally released me, I was breathless. I sank onto the couch, my legs weak. During halftime, my thoughts spiraled. Could I become the woman he saw? Could I live that truth? Every answer whispered yes. So when he kissed me again, I let it happen. His hand moved upward, finding my breast, gentle but certain. When he tried to slip it under my top, I caught his wrist. He was quick, though his fingers flicked the clasp of my bra, loose before I could stop him. The breast form stayed in place, of course. I rehooked the bra with a nervous laugh while he watched me, amused, his eyes soft. His hands traced my waist, my thighs, the curve of my hip. For a moment, I nearly let go, nearly surrendered to that rush of being wanted, being touched like a woman. But I couldn't. Not yet. I pushed him away gently. He didn't argue, just smiled, disappointment flickering in his eyes. After the game, he tried again. And again, I almost gave in. But somehow, restraint won out. When he left, I wasn't the same. I wasn't plain Emily anymore. Not a beauty queen, but no longer invisible either. I felt alive, seen, desired. That night, as I lay in bed, the memories replayed his hands, his voice, his scent, until the image shifted into something pure and impossible. Me, in a white gown, walking toward someone who saw me exactly as I wished to be. Morning came too soon, dragging reality with it. I dressed for work as the person the world still believed me to be. All day, I stumbled through tasks, thoughts spinning, David's smile haunting every moment. By evening, I could bear it no longer. I came home, stripped away the disguise of the day, and dressed again as Emily skirt, blouse, a touch of lipstick until I could breathe again. Mark stopped by after dinner. We sat together quietly before he finally broke the silence. "You know," he said, "you might as well be my sister instead of a piss-poor brother." I blinked at him. "Why do you say that?" "Because it's true. When we were in high school and I caught you wearing Grandma's old gown, I thought you looked good. I wanted to say it then, but didn't. And since then, you've been dressing up whenever you could. I think it's time you became the real you." "I'm not a very good sister, Mark," he chuckled. "You underestimate yourself. You're trying, that's what matters. Even David said you're a nice girl. Let me guess, he tried to get into your panties, didn't he?" "Mark, don't tell me," he said quickly, grinning. "I don't want to know. I just wanted to tell you that I'm nearby if you need me. That's what big brothers are for." I kissed his cheek, and he hugged me tightly before leaving. Later, I called Sarah. She didn't pry, didn't ask about David, just chatted like always, like I was simply another woman in her life. 2 days later, my piece cracked. Susan, my boss, called me into her office. She was always composed, elegant, in her 50s, but looking barely 40. "Care to tell me what's wrong?" she asked. I froze. "You've always been my top employee," she continued. "Now you're distracted, curt, moody. I don't want to scold you, I want to help you. So tell me, what's going on?" I couldn't answer. How could I? How could I say the words "I want to be a woman" without risking everything? She tilted her head slightly, her voice calm. "Maybe you can start by explaining why you sometimes smell like Chanel perfume." My heart stuttered. She smiled faintly, not unkindly. "I can't let this go on," she said gently. "You need to tell me what's happening, so I can help." I looked at her, really looked, and remembered my grandfather's words. And Mark's. "Be yourself. I want to become a woman," I said quietly. "I want to live and work as one." The silence that followed stretched until it felt like it might break. I stood, ready to walk out. "I'll clear my desk," I said softly. "You can mail my check." "Sit down," she said firmly. "I didn't fire you." I hesitated. "How many women work here?" she asked. "7," I replied cautiously. "And how many men?" "1." "That's right. Just you. Our office is built for women, the decor, the restrooms, the entire environment. I don't see a problem here." My mouth opened, but no sound came out. She stood, came around her desk, and took my hands in hers. Her eyes were kind, steady. In fact, she said with a smile, I think you'll fit in perfectly. I want you to go home and relax today, Susan said finally, her tone gentle but firm. But tomorrow morning, I expect to see. Who? I swallowed hard. Emily. She nodded once. Then I'll expect to see you at your desk in the morning, Emily. I'll talk to the rest of the girls today, but I want you here doing what you do best. Honestly, I'm relieved you told me. I thought it was some issue between you and one of us. Now go home. I gathered my things, still in a daze, and as I passed her office, I saw Susan already calling the others into the conference room. She was going to tell them all of them. My secret, the one I'd protected for years, was now in someone else's hands. I couldn't stop her, couldn't even bring myself to try. I just walked out, numb. By the time I got home, my nerves were shredded. Susan wanted me to come to work as Emily. That was real now, official. Tomorrow would be my first day living as the woman I'd only dared to dream about. If I was going to do it, I had to do it right. The red jacket and black pleated skirt, my best outfit. The one that made me feel most like myself. I could have chosen a blouse and skirt, something softer, but I needed confidence more than comfort. I spent the rest of the day preparing. I checked my supply of depilatory, realized I was running low, and made a quick trip to the drugstore. The cashier didn't even glance twice at me, a small mercy. Back home, I sank into a long, hot bubble bath, letting the steam soften my skin. I took my time, removing every trace of body hair, until my skin felt like silk against the water. When I finally stepped out, I felt fragile but renewed, a clean slate. Dinner was a quiet, nervous ritual. I picked at my food, unable to focus on the television. My mind replayed a dozen nightmare scenarios. Whispers, laughter, disgust. What if someone turned ugly? What if I was rejected? By the time I crawled into bed, my nerves were so tight I could feel my pulse in my fingertips. Morning came too early. I felt wrung out, but there was no turning back. After my shower, I slipped into a pair of soft panties and started my transformation. Foundation, powder. A touch more makeup than usual, I needed the armor. Light green and gray eyeshadow, black eyeliner to give definition, a sweep of coral blush. My hair, thanks to Linda's perfect cut, responded beautifully to the blow-dryer and brush, settling into a neat, simple page boy. A bit of gel for shine, a mist of hairspray for hold, gold hoops, a gold-banded watch, a final touch of perfume, subtle, elegant. Then the suit, red jacket, white blouse, black pleated skirt, and heels that gave me just enough height to feel bold. I gathered everything I might need into my purse, compact, lipstick, wallet, tissues, a small vial of courage, and stepped outside. The air was cool, bright, filled with promise. Just as I reached my car, Sarah emerged from her apartment, coffee in hand. She spotted me instantly, her face breaking into a delighted grin. She waved, and I waved back, too nervous to linger. At the donut shop, barista handed me my coffee without so much as a flicker of recognition. The same woman who'd chatted with me dozens of mornings now treated me like any other customer. My heart thudded. Maybe I really did blend in. That hope dimmed as I pulled into the parking lot at work. My stomach flipped. Every step toward the door felt heavier than the last. All my life, I'd believed exposure meant humiliation, cruelty, rejection. Now, I was walking straight into it. The first person I met was Karen. She was tall, solid, with cropped hair, and a confident ease about her. The kind of woman who filled a room just by being in it. She stopped short when she saw me, then grinned. Damn, girl, you look good! Not like some I've seen, that's for sure. I managed a shaky laugh. Thanks, I think. Hang in there, Emily. It'll be fine, she said warmly, and we walked in together. At my cubicle, I froze. My old nameplate was gone. In its place, a new one gleamed. Emily, written in elegant white script on a soft mauve background. Something inside me cracked open, not from fear, but from awe. I sat down, turned on my computer, and tried to breathe. Susan stopped by briefly, handed me a new assignment, and with an easy smile said, "You look very nice." Then she drifted away, leaving me blinking at her retreating back. The morning passed quietly. No whispers, no stares, just the soft hum of conversation and keyboard clicks. When lunchtime came, I hesitated, half expecting an ambush of awkward silence. Instead, as I stepped into the conference room, everyone stood and applauded. For a second, I couldn't move. They were all smiling, every single one of them. The tension that had gripped me for months, years even, collapsed in an instant. Tears blurred my vision. Emily. It was Betty, the oldest woman in the office, the quiet heart of our little workplace. She walked straight to me, took my hands, and pulled me into a hug. Her warmth broke whatever was left of my composure. Susan might have been the boss, but Betty was the den mother, the one everyone went to when life got too heavy. She didn't say much, just held me as I cried, murmuring softly, "Welcome home, dear." For the first time in my life, I truly felt like I belonged. As Betty held me close, I felt the same calm I used to feel in my grandmother's arms, warm, safe, and seen. Her voice was soft, almost identical to my grandmother's whisper from long ago. "You are what God made you to be, honey. Just enjoy it now that you've found it." The words melted the last of my fear. The other women came to greet me, some with hugs, others with shy smiles, but there wasn't a single cruel glance among them. I was accepted. Truly, fully. It should have made me relax, but the weight of it all was too much. I made it through the day in a daze, still waiting for the moment when it would all fall apart. That evening, Sarah dropped by. When I told her that I'd finally gone to work as a woman, she didn't even blink. "That's great," she said, grinning. "So did David call?" Typical Sarah. I wore the same suit again the next morning, then rotated through skirts and blouses the following days. By Friday, I was in slacks and flats like everyone else. Somewhere in that quiet rhythm of routine, I realized how far I'd come from a frightened boy hiding behind locked doors to the woman I now saw every morning in the mirror. I saw David twice more that week. By the second evening, I knew the truth I'd been circling for years. I didn't want to just look like a woman anymore. I wanted to be one. Not just in spirit, but in body and life. The decision settled quietly inside me, like the last piece of a puzzle clicking into place. That Friday, when David came to pick me up, I opened the door in the outfit I'd chosen for that moment. The fabric flowed against my skin like water black, sleek, alive with the soft shimmer of nylon. The sheer robe hinted at what lay beneath: a black bra, matching panties, heels, and a simple ribbon at my throat. The way David looked at me told me I'd crossed an invisible line. When the door shut behind him, the silence filled with heat and possibility. He stepped closer, eyes searching mine, and then the ribbon at my neck fell loose. What happened next blurred between fear and desire, two forces I'd been juggling my whole life. But when he saw me, all of me, he didn't flinch, didn't turn away. He simply accepted me as I was. And in that moment, every fragmented part of me finally fit together. When he left the next morning, I stood by the window, watching the light creep across the floor. My reflection caught in the glass, the curve of my hair, the softness of my expression, the quiet satisfaction of someone who had stopped pretending. I wasn't pretending anymore. That Monday, I began the treatments. The road ahead was long and uncertain, but the fear that had haunted me for years had finally given way to purpose. David and I stayed together for another 6 months, until his transfer took him to another city. Sarah and Mark were inseparable by then. They would likely marry soon. At work, life settled into a steady hum. The novelty of Emily faded into normality, and I became simply one of the girls. Betty joked about setting me up with her grandson. Susan was up for a promotion, and we all agreed Karen would probably take her place strong capable, and kind. I gave away my last bit of male clothing not long after David left. My wardrobe, like my reflection, was mine alone now. With each passing day, I saw less of what I had been and more of what I'd become. Summer was coming. I'd bought a new swimsuit, something I'd once have never dared to imagine wearing. Now, when I looked in the mirror, I didn't see a plain woman. I saw someone real, someone with warmth, presence, and quiet confidence. No, I wasn't a beauty queen, but I was me. And that, at last, was enough. If there's one truth I've learned, it's this. Whatever image you hold of yourself is probably wrong. Look again from a different angle. You might just find the person you were always meant to be.